morning, everyone. Today we're back with Henry Reed Inc. by Kate Robertson. Pictures by Robert McCloskey. Last time we finished at page 71. Let's continue. We detached the sickle bar and I took it home and put it in the garage. Aunt Mabel said it was all right to use the cart, so we drove off down the road. I drove the tractor. Mitch sat on the seat in the little cart, and Agony sat in the cart itself. That dog would rather ride than do anything, even chase cats. Mr. Bain's farm was a sprawling old place with a white house and about 7 red barns. We had a hunt through all of them before we found him. We bought a bale of straw for 50 cents, but put it in the cart and were about to leave when Mitch spotted an old bathtub sitting beside a machinery shed. "Are you going to use that bathtub, Mr. Baines?" she asked. Mr. Baines was a tall, lanky, with long, crooked nose. He looked at Mitch and said, "I doubt it. I got it about 6 years ago. Somebody gave it to me. I was going to use it for watering through. Though then I couldn't find the right fitting to close that hole in the bottom, so I set it there. It's been there ever since." "Do you want to get rid of it?" Mitch asked. "You can have it, but I don't know how you can get it home without a truck," Mr. Baines said. "I'll bet that weighs a good 200 pounds. Don't you think it'll go in the cart?" "It's long for that little cart," he said. He scratched his neck and then said, "Tell you what, there's an old buggy in the machinery shed, and I'm meaning to get rid of it sometime. We'll load the bathtub into the buggy, and you can hitch the buggy behind the cart and take the whole shed back." He called his hired men, and the three of us pulled and pushed and lifted, and finally we got the bathtub into the buggy. The buggy was really what you'd call a spring wagon, according to Mr. Baines, with one seat up front and quite a long body, so there was plenty of room for the tub. I found a piece of rope and tied the buggy on the straw. There wasn't any place for Agony. He wanted to ride, so Midge picked him up and put him in the bathtub. That suited him fine. He stood up on his hind legs and put his front legs over the edge of the bathtub and watched everything happily. Midge decided on the buggy too, and climbed up and sat in the seat. It was a pretty heavy load for the tractor, and for a while I thought it wasn't going to pull it. The tractor has 3 gears, though. I managed to get started in low, and slowly we picked up speed. By the time we'd got halfway down the lane, we were moving along at a fairly respectable clip. We reached the road, and I was able to turn left onto the blacktop without having to stop for traffic. There's a ditch between my lot and the road, and just one narrow spot where there's a driveway over a metal culvert. I knew I would have to hit this fairly square, so I swung away over to the opposite side of the road and then made a sharp turn so I could go in the driveway straight. The tractor was just about on the edge of the road with the cart and the buggy stretched out behind all the way to the opposite side, when Mitch suddenly let out a yell and said, "Stop!" I jammed on the brake and killed the engine. "What's the matter?" I asked. "There's a total right ahead of you," she said, standing up pointing. You're going to run over it." I got off the tractor and picked up the turtle. That made 3 we have. A car was coming down the road, and I decided I'd better get out of the way, so I climbed back on the tractor and pulled the starter wire, but the engine wouldn't start. I don't know what I did. Uncle Al says I must have flooded the engine. Anyhow, I did something and it simply wouldn't start. The car that I'd seen drove up and stopped because it couldn't get by. Then one came from the other direction and it had to stop. I kept pulling on the wire, trying to start the tractor engine, but it wouldn't cough. But this time there were 6 cars. Finally, 2 of the men got out and came over and tried to help me. They both tried to start the engine and had no more luck than I had. Another 5 minutes went by and another 5 cars stacked up in both directions. It was a few minutes after 5 o'clock and people were on their way home from work. Ordinarily, there isn't much traffic along that road, but of course this time there was. I was feeling sort of nervous and embarrassed about it all, but Midge didn't seem to mind. She still sat in the buggy, looking out over the car and waving to people she knew. Agony was in the bathtub, poking his head over the edge, and barking first from one side and then the other. A man with a big camera was in one of those cars, and he came up. I took 3 or 4 pictures. About 10 people trying to stand to the tractor about it, wouldn't budge. Finally, one man said, "Look, we're liable to be here all night if we wait for mechanical power to get this ridge off the road. Let's all take hold of it and we'll pull it off." Several of them pushed the tractor. 2 or 3 got behind the buggy, and several pushed on the cart. I sat on the tractor and steered. With so many people, it was no trick at all. In a minute, we had rolled off the road and onto the lot. The man with the camera was taking pictures as we went. As the traffic jam cleared away, I looked over at the entrance to Mr. Apple's place, and there stood Mr. Apple and Mrs. Apple glaring at everyone. They were hoping somebody would trespass on the lawn so they could snarl at them, said Midge. We were well off the road, and I still wanted to get in the bathtub over near the barn. I got off and gave one pull on the starter wire, and naturally the motor started immediately. I pulled the buggy over where I wanted to get it down from the buggy without smashing everything, including our toes. "What are you going to put in that bathtub?" a man asked. We turned around, and there was the man who had been taking all the pictures. "Earthworms," I said. If I can get it off this buggy." I glanced at my sign on the end of the barn and then said, "What are you going to do? Give your worms a bath before you sell them?" "No, I just want a place to keep them," I said. "I don't want to have to go digging out the entire lot every time people want a dozen." "Well, I don't know why earthworms shouldn't be happy in bathtub. Here, I'll give you a hand." Together, we slid the bathtub off the buggy and over against the side of the barn. Then he took a picture of my sign and asked a lot of questions. I told him all about why I started the research business and that I wanted to be able to report on an example of free enterprise to my class back in Naples. I also mentioned that I was having a little bit of trouble with one neighbor who was complaining that I had violated the zoning law. He seemed very sympathetic and wished both Mitch and me success. He shook our hands and promised that he would buy all his worm forms for us. Well, I think we'll leave it there for tomorrow on Tuesday, July 2nd. See you next time, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Bye!